Welcome in, everybody. Joe Quills here with you. It is a Thursday night. Another edition of the Joe Quill Show, brought to you by absolutely no one. But we are part of the Q&A Sports Zone. Coming up on the show, we got a lot to talk about here. Hopefully, something that we can debate as well. We're not going to embrace debate because those shows that debate on TV, they're a bunch of crap. It's even if they do agree with something, um, they tend to be one side really isn't against the other person. They just make it look like it. But we're going to talk about a couple different things here. Going to talk about the Triple Crown because there isn't going to be a Triple Crown this year again. Same script as last year. Um, we're going to talk about the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments expanding. I like it. I don't love it. Um, Aaron Rodgers has not made a decision yet on going to Pittsburgh yet. And a stupid shit that I saw story that I think will get you to laugh. Um, I do have the news story. Um, there was a second story, but don't know if I. No. Okay. So I'll have to dig while we're going through this here as I'm talking here, especially the first part, because yours truly um, can probably do this part without even looking at the article that I have. Um, uh, so, um, before we get to the Triple Crown story, apparently I missed this because I wasn't really paying attention to the Phillies game tonight, but apparently, um, there was a bit of a controversy here. Um, so apparently, Bryce Harper got into it with a fan, and Don Mattingly had to pull him from the game. Now, granted, right now it's 12-1. And let me see if I can piece together when he came out of the game. Um, so it was a strikeout by Stott. So it looks like it may have been the second strikeout, second time around the order. Let me see if I can piece this together. Um, so I might have been the sixth inning. Now I'm getting this from Philadelphia Sports History on Facebook. Um, Now, Broad Street, they say on here on Philadelphia Sports History that Broad Street Baseball and others, Phillies reports Bryce Harper's reportedly went back and forth with a fan behind the dugout following Bryson Stott's strikeout. Um, the fan apparently chirped Stott after he went down swinging and Bryce came to his defense. Okay, I can understand that. I mean, you're having a bad game. You're down at the time 10-1. So yeah, you're not having a good night. So Harper told the fan to go home. Harper was removed from the game after the incident, and there's also been speculation Bryce is again not happy, Dombrowski not extending his contract. So I will say this as I look for something else here as well. I just think that when you look at this, could we look at this and say, well, he's not happy? Maybe. And ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers have tied the game at 1. Trevor Zegras with his second postseason goal, and we're tied at 1 down in South Philly. A lot better than what the Phillies are doing right now, down 12-1. And there's the alert. See, the only thing is with me watching it online is that, well, either online or on the cable box, this comes up before the goal or the end of the game happens, as the case there is the Phillies lose 12-1. So I will say this. Let's say one person, I'm just going to see if there's something here that says that he said something here. So Broad Street Baseball said, Harper the fan, I see the post on X from a half an hour ago. And somebody said, oh, they're just punting the contest. But I'm going to say this. When it comes to everything with Bryce Harper, I appreciate that he's standing up for his teammate. I appreciate him standing up. Now, telling somebody to go home, probably not the best thing to say. But I think that you have to realize that maybe in the heat of the moment, it's not a good thing to say, but I think saying telling somebody go home as opposed to somebody saying go F themselves or anything worse, I can kind of see that, but still not a good look. And I will say this as well. If this is not true, it probably is. If it is not true, then Broad Street Baseball is going to get sued, or anybody else who reports this. I always try to be careful with this. I try to preface it because The one thing is, this is going to end up on my YouTube. It's going to end up on the Q&A Sports Zone YouTube. And at the very least. And if somebody were to say, well, he reported this too, I'm going to tell you guys as well, viral clips and little 10-second segments, because that's the mindset of Americans and also the brain capacity of Americans. And yes, I'm bashing my country. I don't care. The fact that you may have said something to somebody, no, it's uncalled for. So it will be interesting to see what Bryce Harper has to say, if anything, if this is a thing. But I also think wanting to extend your contract this far out in advance, because you still got 5 or 6 years left on the contract. So I would definitely say, no, we're not going to extend your contract, because that's probably Scott Boras telling him to say that, and not Bryce Harper himself. Also note, Scott Boras is the reason why Major League Baseball has a draft lottery as well. And it's the most ineffective one, because the way minor league baseball is set up and the way that they develop players, you don't get the benefits of the number one pick in most cases for a couple of years, or wherever you land in that lottery, those lottery pick systems, in the whole lottery format. So now if we can get him to say, hey, we need promotion and relegation, I'd be 100% behind Scott Boras. But if something did happen and Broad Street Baseball is correct, then okay. But I just think, I'm trying to stay neutral on this, because it has nothing to do with Harper being a star in this team. It has nothing to do with fans being fans and all that. Especially probably a fan right there in those box seats behind home plate, whatever they call them this week. So they're paying good money. And I will always tell you that here, the worst thing a team could have is a completely silent reaction to something. Because in my opinion, a boo is as good as a cheer. Kind of like how I talk about the way I joke around and tell jokes. A groan is as good as a laugh. It's when you roll your eyes, well, not necessarily roll your eyes, but you just sit there and not respond. That tells me the joke bombed. I mean, really bombed. So I'll try to keep an eye on that. But it just seems like it was, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a combination of things, the blowout, defending his teammate and all that. He's trying to be a leader, but pissing off a fan, going after a fan as a result verbally. That's not cool. But I'll also say it's not something that I will say really happened. Did it happen or not? Probably, but I missed most of the game because I was prepping for the show and also watching the Flyers game as well. So, me on that, but also you know, it is what it is. So, so we had some news earlier today, and I think this broke within the last couple of hours. Um, the NCAA basketball tournament, men and women, are going to be expanding to 90. I wish 96 to 76 teams, which I'm happy for, but I don't think it's enough. But my reasoning for it is different than others because of the fact that I take a couple of different views on this. One thing that I take into account is from when the NCAA tournament went from 48, 51, 53, whatever it was in 84 to 64, there was 250 schools, give or take a couple, in Division I basketball. So you're talking approximately a quarter of the Division I schools were making the NCAA tournament. And also, the NIT was still something that teams wanted to play in, even if they didn't get in. So, you had 96 teams right there. But you have other tournaments now. You have the College Basketball Crown, which is a thing now, which was 8 teams this year. And you also have and you also had other tournaments, which I think the CBI and the CIT, and I think they went out of existence this year. So you had 100. So you have about 100, 110 teams who made the tournament. Now, the NIT over the last couple of years, especially in this day and age of NIL, they're having teams that don't want to play in this tournament anymore. So, of course, my thinking is if you're not going to, if nobody wants to play in it, why have it? And my opinion is just make it 96 teams, move those 32 entrants in the NIT, if you guys can get 32. Because mind you, it's basically mid-major and lower major for the most part, even though an SEC team, Auburn, won this year. And I only know that because I watched the end of that game. Now, I also think the NCAA is protecting the college basketball crown. Why is that? It's a tournament that Fox Sports wants to run. And guess what? Fox Sports has college basketball in the regular season. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to get tournament. You're not going to see them go to 96 just for the sake of getting rid of the college basketball crown, because Fox makes too much money. They'll make money one way so that they can lose money, So Fox makes money, and Fox Sports will make money in different ways to counter that. So, but shrinking from 16 to 8 may be enough that maybe this is in trouble, maybe it's not in trouble. I don't know, but I just think, in my opinion, If I'm the NCAA community, I want to get rid of the college basketball crown. But I know that the NIT nobody wants to play in. So do you want to grow the NCAA tournament and kill these fringe tournaments? Me? I'd rather have a 96 team tournament and have one tournament at the end of the year that 96 schools that can, especially the mid to low majors, say, hey, we made it to the tournament last year. If you want to make it, if you want to try to make the NCAA tournament with us, here you go. Especially the lower D1 schools. But instead, we're cannibalizing these other tournaments. We're cannibalizing the NIT, which the NCAA has owned for a while now. Or whatever. But here's the article here. The NCAA tournament is expanding to 76 teams, and that's both men and women. Basically, what you do for the men, you got to do for the women. It's Title IX stuff. So it's the first time the men's tournament has expanded since 2011, and the first time the women's tournament has expanded since 2022. Tim Sands, the chair of the Division I Board of Directors and president of Virginia Tech, said, expanding the Division I men's and women's basketball champions is the right decision for the student athletes and programs that will now have access to the greatest events in college sports. As NCAA leaders, we are especially excited to provide additional highly competitive games for fans who look forward to March Madness every year. Okay, yeah, but first of all, I question if some of these athletes are true student athletes. I mean, Carson Beck a couple of years ago, last year, I think it was. Don't you have class? I haven't been in class in 2 years. But a lot of what you see now, you know, I just think even more so than NIL and everything else, it's turning more into a minor league than anything else. But so this is the largest increase for the men since they moved to 64 teams in 1985. I think that was 11 teams, but that was just to even everything out to 64 and have 16 in each region. Now, I would prefer 96 because you would have 24 in each region, and you would have 4 straight days where you would have these games, and you have 4 straight days where you have 16 games, 4 at each site for 4 straight days. Personally, I would like it, but then again, I have some things to back, just some random thoughts that I'm trying to use to back my statements. But so with the expansion to 76 teams, the first 4, which were doubleheaders on back-to-back days in Dayton, will be replaced with a 12-game opening round. The Tuesday and Wednesday of the men's tournament will feature 12 games played by 24 teams in 2 different cities. There will now be 3 games per day in Dayton and 3 games per day in a second city yet to be determined, with sources telling Pete Thamel of ESPN that the second site is expected to be west of the Eastern time zone to help with logistics. So I'll throw cities out there just for shits and giggles, only because, you know, it all depends on what you think here. Personally, I would say Kansas City, Omaha, Denver, Las Vegas. I think you're going to have one in the East, one in the West, or Midwest-ish, so that it won't be that much of a travel issue to go from, let's say, Dayton to Philadelphia, I think, yeah, or Dayton to Pittsburgh, or Dayton to Chicago, or Denver to Seattle, even though that's a bit of a hike, but you get the idea. So what they would look at is one of the things that they'll look at as well is not only are we going to look at teams, these matchups, we're going to see, well, where does the winner play next? Okay, they're going to play in Spokane, Washington, or they're going to play in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, well, that will be in Denver or whatever. Now, this could be a rotating site, or this could just be something along the lines of Dayton that has been the site for since 2011, which I don't agree with. I think that should be moved around too, but whatever. So, so they're going to have it at 2 different sites, and they're going to have 3 games per day. Now, on the women's side, the 12 opening round games, those will be played on a Wednesday and Thursday between Selection Sunday and the beginning of round of 64 on Friday. And those will be across 12 of the campus sites designated as first and second round hosts. So let's say you have a 16 seed that is going to play UConn in the first round. That game will be at stores that nobody will go to, because it's like, you'll be saying, who the fuck is that guy? Even though they're women. Come on, Connor, you should know that. So these extra games will help the teams that are playing on campus in the first 2 rounds, as opposed to the way that this tournament is. Now, part of what I wanted, now I wonder, and this is something that we can speculate here until we get more information on this. I feel like, to make it fair for those that have to play on Tuesday, whether because they play on Thursday or just the way the schedule works, that, you're going to have 4 winners not playing their next game on Friday. You have the 3 Wednesday games and then whatever. But whereas the women, you can pretty much piece it all together. So in regards to the men's tournament, I think what we may see, and this was part of my suggestion even years ago when I first started pushing for 96, even though nobody really wanted to go with it. One of the things that I would say is if you're going to go to 96 teams, you go Wednesday and Thursday for round one, Friday and Saturday for round two, Sunday and Monday for round three. But what you would have to do is all the tournaments have to be completed by Saturday. So that's, and you push the announcement, the announcement of the 96 teams to like mid-afternoon, something like that as well, because you're basically packing your stuff up like you're moving out of Florida because a hurricane is coming and going to the tournament site. So if you're going to have 12 schools playing on Tuesday, I think the best thing for you to do is to have all these tournaments done on Saturday. And I'm sure there's a little bit of issue with that, but also what the NCAA needs to do is they need to stop at these gimmick tournaments, these gauntlet tournaments where, in order to get to the final, you need to win 7 or 8 games. Stop it. Just sick of seeing these goofy gimmick brackets and stuff. Just give me 1 versus 8, 4 versus 5, 3 versus 6, 2 versus 7. But another thing I would say is, especially going to 96 teams, what you do is you do a little bit of at least what they used to do in the NAIA when I was at Holy Family back in the 1990s. And yes, I am old enough to say I went to college in the 90s. What I would say is, now what they did back then, I asked the coach at the time, how do you get into the conference or regional tournament? You either need a 500 record or you got to have a 20 rating. Well, I didn't ask how the rating is done, nor do I care. What I know is you do have another way you can qualify teams for your conference tournament. And that would be, the way that I would do it, either a 500 record overall for the year against Division I opponents. If you want to have if you want to play non-Division I schools, go right ahead, because I know some parts of the country, it's pretty hard to get Division I schools to come to your arena. It's just the geography and topography and whatever. Whereas some other parts of the country, it's just easy. And also you also have other things going on. So if you're going to win, if you're going to play a non-Division I school, if you win, that's great. It doesn't count towards your win total. But if you lose, that loss goes to your loss record. So let's say, perfect example I have is Delaware State a couple years ago. Now, granted, they were a crap team. They ended up losing to a Division II school, Goldie Beacom. At least I think it was Goldie Beacom. Now, if Delaware State had won, they still would have been 8-24 for the season. instead of 9-24 or 9-22 or whatever. I'm making numbers up. You get the idea. But because you ended up losing, that loss stays in your loss column for when it comes to qualifying for your conference tournament. So I just think I want you to play Division I schools as well. But I'm also going to acknowledge that maybe. But when I researched this for a couple of years, you do have cases where some schools would be playing for their postseason lives in their final game of the season where they're 15-15 and 7-8. And if they win, they're 16-15 and 8-8. That would get them in. But if they lose, they're 15-17, 7-9. Bye-bye. Turn in your uniforms. Because I want to make it that you have this as a, everybody will say, oh, if you expand to 96 teams, it waters down the product. Yeah, but you get to weed out those bad teams by having these qualifications leading to the tournament. The same way with college football, I want to see all conferences qualify when they expand to 16. But the problem is we're not going to see that because everybody wants to see teams, and they want these super conferences. They want their schools in the mix, and not some Coastal Carolina or Florida Atlantic or North Dakota State, since they went FBS. They don't want those schools in the tournament. They want Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, those Power 4 schools. And where the Pac-10 will fall into that, who knows? I imagine they're going to be classified by the public as a mid-major, but you get the idea. So now these 24 teams that will be in this opening round, half of them will be the lowest seed automatic qualifiers. So probably you're going to see 3 different games of 16 versus 16. Or basically, you got 6 games. So you're going to see 4 different 16 teams play. And then you're going to see 2 different 15s play, if I'm figuring that out correctly. And then you're going to have the lowest seeded at-large teams playing. So you may see a 13, you may see a 12, you may see a couple of 12s, you may see a couple of 11s, you may see a couple of 10s. But either way, you're going to see, some changes that we're definitely going to have to see until we're not going to know exactly until the format has actually been put together. So, and on top of all that, we don't know. I mean, we can piece the tournament together, but, they only tell us the first 4 out, or maybe first 4 and next 4. They don't tell us what they only go 4 to 18, the first 4 or the next 4 that are out. They don't tell us the 12 that are out. So, but you're going to see a little bit of everything here, and I'm interested to see how it would work, but I'm kind of not too thrilled with a number like that, because you're going to get a partial, but you're not going to get 4 days of an additional 2 days of what was Thursday and Friday as well. But that's what I want to see. But Division One men's basketball chair Keith Gill, who's the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference. Wait, they let a small conference guy run this tournament? But they said March Madness is the best postseason of all sports, and this new format will continue that legacy by producing even more compelling games for fans and student athletes. It can. It also can provide some real shit, especially with the 16 versus 16. So now movement toward expanding the tournament has been ongoing for more than 3 years. In January 2023, the NCAA Division I Board of Directors approved the Transformation Committee's recommendation to expand all sports championship events to include 25% of teams. The Men's Basketball Committee began discussing expanding the field this summer. Now, I will also say with this that when you expand to 76, that gives you some leeway here. Because 76 times 4 is 304. Now, there was I think it's 3. Let me pull up the rankings here. Okay, so I'm pulling up the net rankings that they have here. It's what replaced the RPI in college basketball. They have 365 teams. Let me just check one other thing. There's a reason why I'm doing this here. Of course, the wiki file is not coming up. Or there it is. So there is a reason why I'm pulling this up here, because there have been a couple of schools, especially this year, within the last couple of years, that have decided to go from D1 to D3. Just looking to see publications. Okay, 25-26 season. This is what I want. Okay, like for example, the University of New Haven, they went from the Northeast 10 in Division II to Division I in the NEC. So then you have a school, West Florida, who's going to the Atlantic Sun next year. But there was, okay, here it is. St. Francis of Pennsylvania, out in Loretto, PA, out by Pittsburgh. They went from the NEC this year. They are going to the President's Athletic Conference, which is a Division III conference, because when you play Division III ball, there's no athletic scholarships in Division III. So that's why they're doing that. So there is at least 28 Division I schools that are changing conferences. West Florida essentially will be taking the place of St. Francis in terms of Division I status, even though West Florida will end up in the Atlantic Sun next year. St. Francis was in the NEC. But the point is, you got these schools here. A lot of these conferences or a lot of schools are changing around. And this is something that's been going on more and more and more. But, you know, and I know I'm going on a tangent here as well, but they will, but so you're going to have 365 next year, barring anybody dropping programs last minute or anything like that. So let's say it is 365. That puts you at 91.25 for that 25% threshold. That's okay, but the thing is, I think if you go by that 25%, I'm kind of okay with the 76 schools, because if you think about it, I think we're going to see more smaller schools going to Division II or going to Division III, or just giving up athletics at the NCAA level altogether, because they could probably hold them as club teams, but it just means that you're not going to be athletically funded through the school. You got to make your own money. So, but I just think, if you think about it, and here's the thing, I joke around a lot, but I also like to try to make people think a little bit here, and try to egg a response out of you every once in a while. If that 25% is set in stone, then if you go to 96, I'm okay with it being that much over. But I think we're going to get to the point, before you know it, that some small schools are going to say, we can't play Division I ball anymore. Same way that I think what's eventually going to happen with the FBS, these smaller Division I schools that are in FBS are going to say, should we stay here? The same way that on the opposite side of the coin, I wouldn't be surprised if the Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and ACC, even though the ACC is now the bastard child conference like the Pac-10 used to be when it used to be the Power 5, I wouldn't be surprised if those four broke off into their own little world. Because remember also, the football playoffs are not NCAA regulated. Whereas, and one way you can tell, you do not see an NCAA logo on the field for an FBS playoff game. FCS, Division II, and Division III, you will see the NCAA logo because they are governed by the NCAA. The FBS is not. It's probably why we have bowl games as well. But I would love to see expansion to 96. But if you look over the last 3, 5, 10 years, you do see a school or two a year saying, okay, we've had enough of Division I. We can't afford this. Like Hartford a couple years ago, they went from D1 to D3. St. Francis in New York dropped athletics altogether. It's a case of the haves and the have-nots. And those that can't make the money because they're not that big school that's going to make big money, they're going to have to make a decision to be financially secure, whether that means going D2, D3, or out of here, or even NAIA for that matter. So we could be looking at all different. I think we're going to see more schools dropping from D1 because the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And, these schools aren't necessarily poor. It's just that the athletic departments are running a deficit, or they have a budget which is 1/100th of Kentucky, for example, or Michigan. And that's just talking about basketball. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that in the future. But, even though I argue 96, I can give you arguments why they chose 76 and stayed there beyond just what they went through in these meetings. I will argue that part of it is also a fail-safe in the event that a bunch of these schools end up going back to Division II, back to Division III, NAIA, or just closing up shop. Because I think we're at a volatile time with financials and stuff where teams are going to do that. But that's just me. So, and the one thing is, especially if you're on my YouTube, twitch.tv/Joe Quills. Not Twitch, youtube.com/Joe Quills. I will see the alerts and you can respond there because, the thing is, on YouTube, it will stay on there forever. Unless it gets pulled because of the stupid shit I saw story that I planned. Or, you may end up, doing whatever, but you get the idea. So, so we have that. Let me just check one thing here. Mute that. Oh yeah, I did not talk about the other big story here. So I have to give myself one of those because I went directly from that Philly story, which I think is true, but we're treading carefully on that. I skipped right to March Madness, so. And this one, I don't need the article because we will not be seeing a Triple Crown winner this year. So about 3:00 yesterday, Cherie DeVoe, trainer of Golden Tempo, announced that he will be skipping the Preakness and will be going to the Belmont at Saratoga on June 6th. And I hope I'm reading Cherie DeVoe correctly when I see her on the Today Show, on Dan Patrick, on Pat McAfee, with Dave Portnoy. She did she was doing all kinds of media. I think she made a trip to New York, went back to Kentucky, then went back to New York today to throw out the first pitch with Jose Ortiz at the Yankees game this afternoon. And I think Jose Ortiz, at least Ortiz, flew back to Kentucky to ride today, I think. Let me just confirm that. Because I kind of watched the last race, but I didn't pay too much attention to that. So Golden Tempo, as we all know, won the Derby. And I get it. Yeah, Jose Ortiz was there to ride. Was there and back. Okay. So I will say this. Before even Heisa got involved, I think we were trending year over year, for the most part, do what's best for the horse. Also, even though Churchill Downs doesn't need the slot money that the state has been accruing, and especially at the casinos that they run in Kentucky. A lot of these states have inflated purses because you have alternate gaming at these sites. So you do have these tracks that can afford to pay these large purses because you have a subsidy coming in. So I think what happens here is more and more you're hearing the horse comes first. I think even 10 years ago, they will tell you, oh, we're going to do what's best for the horse, but the lure of the Triple Crown is what made these horses run. And they made their horses run in the Preakness. No matter how you feel, whether you're an animal advocate and think that horse racing is cruel, or you're educated enough to know that these horses, for the most part, are being treated better than we treat ourselves. And of course, there's the ones that drug up their horses as well. And I mean more than just Lasix, which, that's a whole thing unto itself, too. So Cherie DeVoe said, I can pull up what she said altogether here. So she won't make the quick turnaround with her horse. Actually, I have it on my Facebook here. At least I think I do. Here it is. So here's the official statement here. And let me share my screen so you guys can see it. There we go. As a thoughtful decision as a team, we have decided that Golden Tempo will bypass the Preakness Stakes. We are incredibly appreciative of the excitement and support surrounding the possibility of a Triple Crown run. The enthusiasm for racing fans, our owners, and our entire team has meant more to us than can be properly expressed. Golden gave us the race of a lifetime in the Kentucky Derby, and we believe the best decision for him moving forward is to give him a little more time following such a tremendous effort. His health, happiness, and long-term future will always remain our top priority. We look forward to pointing him towards the Belmont Stakes, and we are excited what lies ahead with this very special horse. Thank you again to everyone who has supported and believed in this journey alongside us. Now, I'm not going to say a bad thing about Sharita. I'm not. Because I think more and more we're seeing it's more about the horse than anything else. So I have no problem with her saying that. And there's other logistics as well. There's other things that come with this as well. She did mention, even though it's only 55 yards, he is running a shorter distance than in the Derby. Now, I don't think going 9.5 furlongs is much different from running 10. He's also going to be running, he would have been running on a track which may be a little more forgiving for those that want to make a wide move on the turn, because you're talking about a track that is 1.1 miles in circumference. So those turns are going to be a little bit wider. You won't lose as much ground if you're in lane 1, lane 2. If you're 3-4 lanes out, you're not going to be as bad as, let's say, Churchill Downs or Pimlico, where they'll be at again next year. So you're going to see how everything will turn out, but without Golden Tempo. Now, if Belmont was ready for racing this year for the Belmont, it'd be interesting to see how he'd be able to handle 1.5 miles. But they're only going to go 1.25 miles because of the configuration of Saratoga and the fact that you probably you can't go much farther back on the home stretch, because there's no chute for 1 3/8 miles or 1.5 miles, because you're up against real estate and other things there that you can't move. Well, you can move them, but I think the street gets in the way too, which the state probably would never allow. So even at I think she knows from the 1 3/16 race at the fairgrounds that this horse wants 1.25 miles. He showed he wants 1.25 miles and doesn't want to shorten him up. Okay. I think that with the fact that the Connections won $3.1 million for winning this race and got divvied up from owners to the trainers to the jockey to the hot walkers to the agent, the whole thing that they do. I have no issue with this. And I think, unlike last year where we could, and we probably did argue that Belmont had an ulterior motive, and that was win the Travers, the Summer Derby, because that was the race that he never won until last year. And he had the Belmont at Saratoga as well. So he wanted to win the Belmont, which he did. He also wanted to win the Travers because he had never won that one. No problem. But we knew that he had a goal that probably right away. He knew the moment his horse crossed first. Oh, we're not running in the Preakness. We'll just make him think. I really think, from what I've seen in these interviews I've seen with Cherie DeVoe, I really think she made a very tough decision. Because not only could she be the first woman to win the Kentucky Derby, or first woman trainer, she could be the first woman trainer to win the Preakness and be the first woman trainer to win the Triple Crown. But with the whole mentality of always getting maximum performance, always doing, always targeting a race instead of saying, okay, well, we're going to run here, then we're going to run, it's like, we'll run here and then we'll worry about the rest. So I think what you're going to see is, and I think we're going to have this discussion next week, whether it's a also eligible prime time, whether it's another show or something like that. I think we are going to have a ton of debate over whether the Triple Crown needs to be changed. Personally, I would say yes, but my reasoning is different than others. Not only is it, if you were asked a common sports fan, just in general, if you were to walk into Citizens Bank Park, I guarantee you, when's the Kentucky Derby? Just in general, like, for example, the Super Bowl is the second Sunday in February right now. Just in those generalities, when's the Kentucky Derby? Oh, it's the first Saturday in May. Ding, ding, ding. When's the Preakness? No. My point is, I want to see the Preakness on Memorial Day, and I want to see the Belmont on the 4th of July. Because on Memorial Day, after you cook out a little bit, you have your morning parades. Remember those who passed away serving our country. Then we can converge onto our TVs about 6:30 and watch the big race. Or the 4th of July, before you go and watch the fireworks, you get to see the fireworks on the track, especially if a horse is going for the Triple Crown. And you can argue, oh, it's too easy if you do it like that. Yeah, but the thing is, those 20 horses, 14, you may get 6, 8, 10 of them who want to return and run in the Preakness, because guess what? We have more time to rest up. Now, some will argue first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, first Saturday in July, which also would be helpful for fan viewership, because you had 19 million watching the Derby on Saturday. One of the highest rated derbies in a long time. So I don't think you have the issue, but I think also what complicates things is the fact that this year The race is at Laurel Park and not at Pimlico because they're totally redoing the grandstand. So you're looking at, and Bob Baffert said it best. He says, along the lines of, I don't know how to get there. I've never ran a horse at Laurel Park. Well, I know what he means. I mean, I think that it's the logistics of getting his horse from California or Kentucky or wherever his horse is based at the moment and getting him to Maryland. Now, because he's run year after year after year for the most part at Pimlico, he knows what he has to do to get his horse from California, Kentucky, wherever, Oaklawn, and get them to Baltimore. Whereas now, for this year, it's, okay, what are the logistics? What do I have to do to get my horse there right outside of Washington, D.C.? Am I still flying into Baltimore? Am I flying to D.C.? Personally, I fly to Baltimore because, D.C., they have all kinds of air traffic issues. But I would say, even though this had to be done, because you want to run a Triple Crown race no matter what. I mean, they did whatever they could to get those races run in 2020, as you remember. You want to make sure that you can get these horses there. And I think the inconvenience of running at a track that many of these connections are not used to, they're like, So I understand Bob Baffert's theory too, because what he was saying, because guess what? He doesn't want to, I mean, I think he wants to run at least one of his horses, but the problem is, even though he's probably has his logistics down pat, it's like, well, what have I got to do to get my horse from DC to Laurel or from Baltimore to Laurel? So you have that. So I just think, and also as a result, now that the winning horse is not in there, because a lot of times as well, a lot of horses that ran in the Derby, even more so because, oh, we didn't win the Derby, we're not going to run the Preakness. Screw that. We'll wait till the Belmont, or we'll find another race which isn't related, which isn't on the Triple Crown Trail, whatever. You can then say, well, we're just going to do whatever. Okay. But I think we have to change things up here. And the traditionalists are going to say, no, you can't change this. Well, you had a ratings boom last week. So you're basically going to go from one of the higher Kentucky Derbies to probably one of the lowest Preaknesses because, one, it's not at Pimlico. Two, nobody wants to see these horses run. So I would definitely say it's time to change things up. But I think that we have to look at it very carefully. But you're talking about 3 different tracks. You're going to have even more flexibility with Pimlico because they'll be the year-round track in Maryland, which I don't agree with. Also, you're going to have pretty much year-round racing at Belmont. And if you ran it on the 4th of July, then you could pretty much end the meet right around there, give or take a day or two, and then go right up to Saratoga. It may mess up the Jim Dandy, but guess what? Give a little bit of break, then you can run in the Travers towards the end of August. So, I'm interested in seeing what you guys think, especially if you're going to be watching after the fact on YouTube, because I like to see horses going for the Triple Crown again, because it's now 6 out of the last 8 years that a horse has not run in the second leg of the Triple Crown. Consider it soft. Consider money. Consider a million different things. It's just the way it is right now. You might have to do something about it, but I'm not, I'm not the horse racing commissioner, but I know that when I see numbers like we had for the Derby, it's like, well, how can we get close to that for the Preakness? And you're not going to be close to that for the Preakness when the horse that won the Derby isn't running in the Preakness. And you're basically going to get a bunch of people where Conor McGregor's going to be saying, "Who the fuck is that guy?" So we'll see. And this weekend, which is the week in between the Derby and the Preakness, we're going to be looking at Aqueduct, a.k.a. Belmont Big A. They're in their final 2 months of their existence. We will be looking at the Peter Pan, which is a field of 6, going to be scratching down to 5. And Mike says, I agree, the Triple Crown races need a mini makeover. Yeah, it's not that hard to do. We're going to look at the races from Aqueduct. Probably going to look at the 4 stakes races, which I think are 6, 7, 8, and 9. So you are looking at shorter fields, but we'll still take a look at those 4 races, and we'll still look at the Peter Pan because you're going to have 6 horses. 5 of them are going to be running. And with those 5 horses, a couple of them are Triple Crown eligible. So you may see one of them, or maybe both of them, or however many, up at Saratoga in June. So, but we'll take a look at those races, and we'll go from there. So that's Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, wherever you are around the world, adjust accordingly. One last story before the stupid shit I saw story. Now, sources have told ESPN today, or at least I think it's from today, yeah. Aaron Rodgers is expecting to visit the Steelers this weekend and is likely to play for them this season. But remember when Aaron Rodgers was getting fucked over by Brett Favre because Aaron Rodgers got drafted. Everybody's saying, "Oh, we want Aaron Rodgers to take over," and Brett Favre will retire, and then he wouldn't retire. You say retire, and then he'd come back. Well, Aaron Rodgers is doing the same thing Brett Favre did. The only difference is you're seeing Aaron Rodgers do this without actually mentioning the word retirement this time of the year. But you know, right now there's no agreement between the Steelers and Rodgers at this time. Rodgers is expected to visit the team this weekend and is likely to play for them this season. There's no agreement between the Steelers and Rodgers at this time. The Steelers are holding their rookie minicamp this weekend, and what that is it's basically all the rookies and maybe some select veterans. You know, I mean, Philly's done the same thing. So, Art Rooney II told NFL Network last week he remained confident Rodgers would be the team's quarterback in 2026 and believed the uncertainty would wrap up soon. But Rooney has also said at the NFL meetings in late March that the Steelers expected an answer from Rodgers by the NFL draft, but that didn't happen. So, and by the way, Carolina is now up 4-1 in the third period. You know, I will say this. Flyers may be a year ahead of schedule. But then again, this could be a good thing for them, but it also could be a bad thing because this could stunt their growth, but this could get some players who they may want to, the front office may want to target and say, yeah, I do want to play on this team. I do see what this team has going forward, but we're not talking Flyers, but you know, we are, I'm trying to give you updates on that if I can. So, and that was the update. So, GM Omar Khan and Coach Mike McCarthy said before the draft that the Steelers were not putting a deadline on the quarterback to notify the team of his decision. You're eventually going to need a decision. I know what they mean, but you're going to need a decision so that you can get these guys in camp and ready for the season. Now, Khan indicated the team's conversations with Rodgers have been all positive and good. Okay. Now, because Rodgers remained unsigned through free agency, probably because he was in some dark room, the Steelers applied the rarely used unrestricted free agent tender on Rodgers late last month, ensuring they would be eligible to secure a compensatory draft pick if he signed with another team. I think at this point, between now and training camp, it's Pittsburgh or nothing. But he could conceivably walk into a team's training camp like he's Jesus Christ. He probably thinks he is Jesus Christ on top of it. My sons, I have come to save ye. Or whatever Jesus would say. So I just think that between now and training camp, the only real spot would be Pittsburgh, considering the draft is gone now. Free agency is pretty much gone except for the June 1st tenders, the June 1st salary cap issue. But if Rodgers were to sign the tender, he would receive a 10% raise off of last year's salary, which would pay him about $15 million this year. And he obviously isn't playing for the money. He's just playing for, you know, for his fake wife, I guess. But the tender also gives the Steelers exclusive negotiating rights with the quarterback if he does not sign with another team by July 22nd or the first day of Pittsburgh training camp, whichever is later. So that day, whatever date it is, that's the target for that. So, but he's going to be 43 during the 26th season. Now, he did acclimate seamlessly to the Steelers in 2025. Now, he would have Mike McCarthy back. He'd be playing for Mike McCarthy again. So, for the most part, he would know his playbook. You would adapt. You would have to adapt to some changes and stuff, um, but so I would think that you have different issues that different things that you would have with that. So, um, but I think it's only a matter of time before Rodgers signs with Pittsburgh. But I don't think it's anything. I mean, we'll see what happens. So one last story here. And once again, this is definitely something that this segment, the stupid shit I saw segment, the reason why I do not have this as a regular bit is because sometimes you try too hard and it's like, if we were actually a radio station, a TV station, cable, whatever, and we actually had people that were actually grading my stuff, we would have people saying, well, first of all, you got to call it stupid stuff, not stupid shit. But, but if the FCC is not involved, I will call it the stupid shit I saw. I will also say the fact that this is sporadic, not page sporadic, but sporadic, you do occasionally have to, I think it makes this a better bit because when I say at the beginning of the show, when I go through the rundown, or we get to this point of the show where I'm actually going to talk about it, it actually makes this segment, ooh, I can't wait to see what he has. So I do have a question. I know Mike is probably going through this with his banks. I know I went through it when I moved here 9 years ago. Can't believe it's been 9 years I've been in this apartment. Not at one time, but in general. But they do have a, you do, because you want your mail going to the right place. So sometimes when you call, you have to have your ID and other things. I think when I changed the address on my bank, I just went to the bank. This was pre-COVID and everything, so I could just walk in and say, hey, I need to change my address on my bank account. So I said, I need to fix this. Okay. So I ended up going to the bank, gave them my ID, and then I gave them, well, also my mail, my bank statement was purged from the mail anyway, so I just had to go online and get it. So apparently, and I first saw this when another Augustinian priest mentioned this in a homily. Why do I say an Augustinian priest? Well, Pope Leo called his bank to change his address. And here is the story from CBS News, because even Pope Leo could not avoid the frustrations of customer service. Hold on. Okay. Here we go.
Leo, living one of the most exceptional lives on the planet. He now serves 1 billion Catholics as leader of the church and the entire world as a messenger of peace. And yet, not even he can avoid frustrating dealings with customer service. In a story told recently by Father Tom McCarthy, an old friend of the Pope's from Illinois, the Pope had to call his bank to update the address and phone number on file. But the bank said they were unable to do it over the phone. And I'll let Father McCarthy take it from here.
She asks all the security questions, and then it says, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It says here you have to come in person." And he said, "Well, that's not gonna. I'm not gonna be able to do that. Would it matter to you if I told you I'm Pope Leo?" She hung up on him.
The Pope did eventually get a message to the bank president, we're told, and the file was updated. But think of the real miracle here. The next time you're on with customer service and getting absolutely nowhere, you're not alone. The Pope is there with you. Pope.
Now, I will say this, is that's a funny story here. And I know this from being in customer service on the phone for 26 years. And I'm pretty sure, that everything was calm, Catholic, so to speak. You know what I mean? Basically, everything was not in anger, calm, and as calm as, that priest Tom McCarthy was saying. So, and I know this from being on the customer service side of the phone. And I'm sure this isn't the first person that called them and said, "I'm this person." Pope Leo, Michael Jordan, Ozzie Guillen, Sammy Sosa. They said that they're, and with a lot of these people, it was more along the lines of, "Don't you know who I am? I'm this guy or woman." So now, especially in certain professions, and I guarantee you that, at least from how I feel Pope Leo would have acted, and also, just being a priest in the Catholic faith, even if he was just Father Robert Prevost, whether he was that level of the priesthood or all the way to bishop to pope, I guarantee you it was probably the same way that the priest was talking to the people in the clergy there. The same as me talking to you. The way Tony DeCopel did on the CBS Evening News. I guarantee you, when they contacted the bank president, I'm sure it was pretty much the same thing. It was just, um, I kind of have this job where I'm the Pope now. I can't just fly to Chicago, change my address, and then hop back on Vatican Force One or whatever they would call that airplane. So I don't think that had anything to do with customer service. Customer service being bad. It's like, hey, can you help me out here? Because, even though the person hung up on me, but I think you can tell in some regards, but we've gotten away from it with cell phones. I mean, Mike can vouch for this. I know anybody else who's 35 and older can vouch for this, that grew up with landline phones in their home. There's nothing more satisfying than slamming a phone down. Nowadays, kids don't know what it's like. Oh, I'm just going to punch this button really hard. The other side doesn't get to hear the beginning of that slam. And apparently when I call the bank, I have to verify I'm human. Yeah. Also, you have to verify that you speak English. All that stuff. But I think which statement, I'm not sure. I mean, but seriously, when you look at this, I can understand somebody saying, I'm this person. Because I'm sure they get it a couple of times a month, a couple of times a year. I'm so-and-so. Don't you know who I am? And truthfully, I'd like to get to this point with Q&A Sports Zone where I'll say, don't you know who I am? Matter of fact, I kind of like that I don't. But yeah, so truthfully, I don't care what I don't think that had anything to do with, for example, I got bad customer service because that person hung up on me. I think it was more, I need your help here. I went through customer service. I'm sure there's probably somebody in between that could have helped, but even with going to supervisory and stuff like that, you would have things like that. Like, for example, when I worked at Verizon, there was a protocol, like, for example, well, I want to report this to whomever. Okay, well, and half the time it could be resolved where the manager in charge could call, but no, I gotta talk to this particular office or whatever. But I mean, this is back in the old days. It'd be like, well, I need to talk to this person because this is total BS and blah, 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 blah. But we would then say, hey, just to let you know, I had no other choice. I had to get that number out. I tried to get you to call them back or you to come on the line. Instead, it turns out they want this number, the bitch out line, for lack of a better term, and we'll go from there. So you occasionally get those customers that even with going to, going through the protocol, well, that's not good enough for me. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I just think it had to do with, hey, I need to change this because, oh, by the way, I don't want to change my bank because let's say I pass away, that money is going to go to brother, niece, nephew, whatever. There's probably something in his will already. So I just think that you have to, I understand why the person hung up. I'm Pope Leo. And the way that they presented that, if that was the exact words, what if I told you I was Pope Leo? But also, it may be the case, it may not be the case. It depends on how the call systems are. You may have the number on your screen. And they're calling from the Vatican, which is like this big in Italy. So you're looking at this number that comes up on your screen, if it does come up on the screen, and it's like, what the hell is this number? Like when you have one of those, like it's come up a couple of times where somebody was trying to spoof their number on my phone, and it'd be like 162 blah 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 blah, and it was 11 numbers, but it read the 1 with the 626, let's say. So the 1 would be there, and then it would be +1, then 6262, and then a string of numbers that would count to 11 numbers. So you may be having people that say, well, 11 numbers. I say, well, it's coming up as an international number, but if you see that it's 11 numbers, I think that somebody may be spoofing their number because +1 may mean international, but +1 and then 62, and then, oh, by the way, this is 626. Well, 626 is this area code and blah, blah, blah. So you may be getting a call from somebody pretending to be from this particular state. So, but, I don't know what the bank sees for a telephone number on the screen. But it may just be policy with the bank where, and, I had to do it on my bank account 9 years ago, where I had to show my ID. I had to show the fix that they had on there because I didn't have much time with that ID as well left. So like I had a little piece of paper that was folded up like this, and I gave this half with the ID. I said, just me over qualifying things because I'm sure that they've seen it hundreds of times. I said, I recently moved. I got the ID squared away. This is the additional stuff that they give for the ID. Okay, well, we'll set everything up. You're all set. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. So it's just that, I'm now in Italy. And even if he decided, hey, I need to close my account because, by the way, I'm in Italy. I'm in the Vatican City. So you get the idea. So, but that was an interesting thing that I saw last night, and I saw that story this afternoon, starting to get ready for this show. So I thought it was one of the stupid shit that I saw stories that were funny as hell. So, um, but um, yeah. So, but I would say, that's a situation where I can understand why she hung up, but I probably, you probably would say, well, Pope Leo, but but funny thing that ended up happening here. So, but that's the purpose of the segment. Some goofy story, and it's a nice sorbet to end the show. So, but anyway, they're down to the final 25 seconds. Carolina is going to go up 3-1 on the Flyers. It's 4-1. There were all kinds of fisticuffs here. So there's a fight here and a fight there, here a fight, there a fight, everywhere a fight, go team, go, or something like that. So that's it for this show. And I do appreciate everybody watching. We'll do it live Monday night here at 9 o'clock. And also, once again, check out Also Eligible on Saturday. We're going to be looking at the racing from Belmont to Big A, a.k.a. Aqueduct, as they are in the final 2 months of their story history. We will be looking at the Peter Pan. And like I said before, I prefer Jif. But that's it for now. Do appreciate each and every one of you. Let's do it live Saturday morning at 10 o'clock.
Do it live!
And if not, we'll catch you here. Mike will be here, barring anything unforeseen, Monday at 9 o'clock for another edition of the Joe Quill Show. So hope everybody has a great night. Stay out of trouble. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, all that Hulk Hogan shit. That was all bullshit. But anyway.